Hey, it's Art from My New Microphone. In this video, I'm going over 20 music production techniques in under 10 minutes. I do have a PDF that will accompany this video. It will be the first link in the description box down below, where I go into greater detail about each of these music production techniques. This will also be a first video in a series of 5 that I'm putting together, and the playlist will be linked down below as well if you'd like to check out more production techniques as those videos become available. So without further ado, let's hop into the digital audio workstation and get started. 20 music production techniques in under 10 minutes. Starting off, we have pumping reverb, where we will set up an effects return with a reverb and some sort of pumping effect. We can use the LFO tool from Extra Records. We can utilize sidechain compression, tremolo, transcating, or even volume automation. This is just a way to get more rhythm out of our reverb. By itself, it sounds like this. And in the context of the mix, clipping is a great way to get a little bit more headroom out of our drums by reducing the peak level without overly affecting the perceived loudness or tone of the drums. It can sound like this. Without. So we're getting an additional 4 dB of headroom right there. And we can also utilize clipping to add a bit more aggression like so. If we have a single background vocal along with our lead vocal, we can utilize doubling on the background vocal to widen out the sound and push it further back in the mix while making more room for the lead vocal in the center image. So without doubling, the background vocal and lead vocal will sound like this. And with doubling, anchor delays are subtle mono quarter note delays that I like to use to tie in lead elements and vocals into the overall song. In this case, I have a piano solo being sent to this delay brigade from Arturia, and it sounds like this. And without. Again, subtle, but it does help to tie things together. LCR is a style of panning where things are panned either hard left to the center or to the hard right. This helps with mono compatibility as we get the most important things in the center, and it also helps with width because we get that contrast between the left, center, and right. So this is what this would sound like. You notice that I do have a few things panned intermediately. I use this more as a thought process than a hard rule. Revisiting a melody, especially between a vocal and a lead instrument, is a great way to tie together things in a song and give the listener something new yet familiar in the mix. Here's an example.
Plastic, rapid, please. More junk to ride on the breeze. Charge me what you need.
And split band processing affords us more control over the low end versus the mid-range and high end of our elements. It's particularly useful on bass elements. In this case, we have a bass guitar, which I have duplicated here. This is the exact same audio file. And in this track, we have a low pass filter. In this one, we have a high pass filter at the exact same corner frequency with the exact same slope. And this gives us more control over the low end to make it more consistent or to automate it for power in the mix. And it also gives us more independent control with our own processing right here over the overall tone of the bass without that affecting the low end. You can see here that we can also automate them differently. In the case of this mix, I have the tone having automation in the intensity and also in volume right here. Automating the delay time of a delay plugin can give us interesting modulation effects, much like many other modulation effects like chorus and flanging. In this case, we have a synth being run through this tape delay, and we can have a listen to what this automation of the delay time sounds like. If you want a more human feel by actually performing the MIDI rather than programming it, but you can't keep up with the tempo of the song, you can actually slow down the tempo within your session, perform at that slower tempo, and then speed it up to get that feel. So for example, if I wanted to perform this bass line, but I was struggling, I could actually slow it down and perform it much more simply and then speed it back up. If you're struggling to balance a track within the mix, try bringing it just too quiet and then pushing it just too loud and then splitting the difference. For example, the lead vocal. Work this hard, I don't even mind it. That's too low.
because I know quite soon work be hard, be fine.
That's too loud. Split the difference.
I would do it seasonally if you wanted me.
Time aligning our background vocals can make them sound thicker, fuller, and more professional in the mix. In this case, I have 4 background vocals being time aligned to the lead vocal via Vocal Line Ultra by Synchro Arts. This is what it sounds like without the time aligning.
All around us is the drug takers playing with the salt shakers, one us for all. Y'all thinking you're different.
And with.
All around us is the drug takers playing with the salt shakers, one us for all. Y'all thinking you're different.
Subtle, but it does make a difference. Hate it or love it, vocal tuning is part of modern music production, and even the best vocalists around can benefit from a little bit of tuning. In this case, I'm using Melodyne. We can have a listen to what the lead vocal sounds like without any tuning.
Taught me truth, oh, but it isn't. Thought me stick around, oh, but you did it.
And now with.
Taught me truth, oh, but it isn't. Thought me stick around, oh, but you did it.
So it's subtle, it still sounds natural, and it places the vocal more in tune with everything else in the mix. Utilizing multiple vocal reverbs is a great way to add extra dimensionality and sonic variation throughout the mix. There are a few ways of going about doing this. In the case of this mix, I have the lead vocal going to this 1.46 second reverb, then the background vocals being sent to these ones that are panned hard left and hard right. Another way of utilizing multiple vocal reverbs is to have a single vocal being sent to multiple reverbs and adjusting the mix of those reverbs throughout the mix. EQing our effects returns is a great way to mix them with the dry signals that are feeding them. This is true of parallel processing, like this drum parallel compression right here, where I'm rolling off the very low end and getting rid of some of the muddiness range here at 137. And it's also true of our time-based effects returns, such as delay and reverb. In this case, I have a snare plate, which I am again cutting out some of that muddiness range and boosting a little bit in the mids here at about 2,500. Recording live automation by hand in real time is a great way to get a more intuitive or human feel out of the automation in our music production versus just drawing it in when there's no music playing. This can be done for fader automation, panning automation, or any of the parameters. In this case, I have Guitar Rig 6 and I am automating the real wah right here, and this is what it sounds like. I define micro-arranging by looking at the individual sections of the overall arrangement of the song and turning them into their own arrangements in their own respective right. I won't be able to go through all of this in this video, but you can see here that by simply looking at the arrangement view of this song, there's always something new coming in or coming out of the mix to keep the listener engaged throughout the entirety of the song. A composite track is made up of the best takes from several takes of the same performance, often on a line-per-line basis in the case of the vocal. And so, for example, if this whole first half, the best take was the first performance, I could take that and bring it up to the composite track. And then in the second half, let's say that the first 2 words were the best in the second track, I could take this, bring it up to the composite track, and then the last performance was the best for the ending. I could take that and bring that up to the composite track and then have a best of composite track with the best performance of what I had recorded. Arpeggiation is a great way for monophonic instruments to insinuate chords, and it's also a great way to get away from block chords and add a little bit more sonic interest and rhythm into the music production. And so in this case, we have a chorus, and this guitar could have been playing the same chords as everything else, but instead I arpeggiated it and it sounds like this. Utilizing reference mixes is a great way to A/B your production against other songs that have aspects that you would like to borrow for your own music. It's also great in mixing when you can reference other tracks inside an album, other tracks that have been commercially released that you like the sound of, and also alternate mixes, as is the case in this track right here, where I'm referencing an old mix. So I have the original here and the old mix. The last technique I have to share today is gain staging, where I will insert a gain or trim plugin on each and every one of my tracks and set it so that when the fader is at 0, that track is hitting around -20 to -18 dBFS. That way I can ensure that I have proper headroom across the entirety of my digital audio workstation. And more importantly, I can quickly look at my faders and see what is louder because everything will be at the same relative value at any given fader point.